an original.
From Story Studio Network.
Welcome to The Fatigue Fixer, the podcast where we get real about why you're so tired and what you can do about it. Every 2 weeks, we'll gather here for honest, heart-to-heart conversations about reclaiming your energy, your patience, and feeling truly at home in your body. I'm Dr. Sarah Vedmonkar, a naturopathic doctor, Menopause Society certified practitioner, Enneagram 3 entrepreneur with enough business ideas to last me 10 lifetimes, and a hockey and baseball mom. Over the past 15 years, I've helped thousands of women just like you cut through the confusion and finally feel like themselves again. And now, I want to hear from you too. Use the link in the show notes below to leave me a voicemail, to share your story, give feedback on an episode, ask a question, or tell me what's been exhausting you. And your voice might even make it onto the show. Together, we'll get to the root of what's really draining your energy and give you the tools, clarity, and encouragement you need to fix your fatigue. I hope you enjoy today's episode. Welcome back to The Fatigue Fixer. We had a request recently to do an episode about invisible or hidden illnesses, and I knew exactly who I wanted to have on the show to talk about that. My guest today is Pam Conquest. Pam is a palliative care nurse consultant who helps individuals with chronic and life-limiting illnesses to better manage symptoms, including fatigue. Her work is uniquely shaped by both clinical expertise and lived experience. Diagnosed with multiple sclerosis in 2014, Pam has navigated years of relapses, treatments, and the ongoing reality of fatigue. As a mother to one child on earth and one in heaven, she understands how invisible grief can quietly and deeply affect energy, and recognizes grief and loss as a common thread in people with chronic and life-limiting illnesses. Blending professional insight with personal experience, Pam offers a compassionate and powerful perspective on how chronic illness and grief intersect, and how individuals can better understand and manage their energy. Pam, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you so much for having me.
I'm very excited to hear more about your story and to share your story with my audience. I think where I'd love to start is maybe just spending a few minutes setting the stage and getting everyone up to speed about what MS is, because I find, despite the fact that Canada has one of the highest rates of MS in the world, with over 90,000 people in our country living with MS, I feel like most people don't really know that much about it. So, what is MS? MS is a neurological disease of the central nervous system, which includes your brain, your spinal cord, and the optic nerves. And what happens in MS is that the body's immune system mistakenly attacks myelin, which is the protective covering of the nerve fibers. And myelin is needed to effectively send messages to and from the brain. So damage to the myelin can result in loss of nerve fibers, and over time, these changes can contribute to disease progression. And what's interesting is that the average age of diagnosis is 43, which is exactly the age I am as we speak, and 75% of people with MS are women. Mm-hmm. So MS is a continuous disease process that can progress over different stages over time, and everyone's experience with MS can be very different. So the symptoms, the severity, and how well the treatment works. And some of the most common MS symptoms include fatigue, which I'm sure we'll talk a lot about, problems with balance, weakness, sensory changes like tingling and numbness, vision problems, bladder and bowel problems, and cognitive and mood changes. So, Pam, can you take us back in time prior to your diagnosis? Like, was MS something that was on your radar that you knew about? Like, was this something that you knew a lot about before you were diagnosed?
I did know about it because I am a nurse. So I worked with people with MS. It was never, you would never, when you're personally going through things, you would never think that it's going to be you. You're going to be one of those statistics. So when I was beginning to have some of my symptoms, my first symptom was just tingling in my right leg. And I just said, oh, it's just, a pinched nerve. I've gained weight over the years, and, it's just putting stress to my body. And then I kind of just pushed it aside, just kind of almost blamed myself for, okay, well, you know what, I'm eating healthier. I need to eat healthier, and then, everything will be better. And then a couple years go by, and I'm on a cruise, and I wake up with full body numbness from like my breast all the way downwards. And when I went and I was in the middle of the ocean and I was like, what is happening to me? I went back to my GP, and she's like, I think, like we need to do an MRI. And she actually previously ordered me an MRI 2 years prior, but I never actually followed through with it.
Interesting.
Because with MS, symptoms come and go. So you have your relapsing, remitting. So I had that brief period. My first thing with MS was this right leg tingling. She ordered me at the start of an MRI, and then I went into it, and then I had so much claustrophobia that I was like, I can't do it. I'm going to eat healthy and everything will be fine. And it was fine over 2 years. But then after, when I was on my cruise, then it just completely, fully like went full blown into it. But before, she went and she said, with your blood work, you have some low vitamin B12, and that could be, that tingling. So there could be that. So when I was on the cruise, I said to my husband, my then boyfriend, said, my B12 must be extremely low. So when we get off the boat, we'll be in Miami. We're going to go to the pharmacy, and I'm going to get a huge thing of B12. I'm going to just basically just take the whole thing, and everything will be fine because, last time it went away. And then, so when I went to my GP, she's like, "Hey, you need to go for the MRI now. I'll give you some medication for it." But when I was going through it, I was on the floor, and the nurses around me, I'm blessed to be surrounded by all these healthcare workers. And I was young at the time. I was 24. There's nothing you don't see. You're not expecting this life-altering diagnosis. So we were still kind of, all of us all around were just kind of like, I don't know what's going on, but we'll see. Don't worry about it. It's okay. But then when I went for the MRI, and then my GP called me and was like, I need you to come in. That's when I started to feel a little worried. My mom's a nurse too. I come from like a whole family of nurses. She knew that there was something wrong, and she wanted to go with me to that appointment. And I was like, "No, Mom, don't worry about it. It's fine. Nothing's going to happen to me. You never think that something's going to happen to me. I'm 24. I just got my like permanent full-time job as a nurse. Like everything's going well. Like I'm with my boyfriend." And then, so I was like, "No, don't worry about it." She's like, I'll stay in the car." And I remember that exact moment when my GP was like, the MRI shows that you most likely have MS, and I'm going to refer you to the MS clinic. At that moment, I was in complete shock, and I remember walking across the parking lot, and I was just looking at my mom. And as a mom now, to see your own daughter, I can't even imagine the pain that she would have felt. But I walked there, and I was in complete shock, actually. And even though that my GP said that it's showing clear that you have MS and you're going to be referred to the MS clinic. I told all of my coworkers, they were all very supportive, and I was like, I'm going to be referred to the MS clinic, but it's not for sure that I have MS. I was in complete denial of this, my whole life kind of blowing up before my hands. And I think everyone around me, all my coworkers we were all, we graduated, we just, life was just starting, and like to have this diagnosis, and right at that moment, your life really becomes before and after. And at that time, I didn't know that it was actually really grief.
Mm-hmm.
Grief of my life, that like I didn't have any worries in the world. Everything was going so well, that I was getting my full-time job, that I had my boyfriend that like was moving around the world for me, like was just like basically was my number one supportive, my number one cheerleader. And when that happened, because I'm in healthcare and, people with MS, we don't see a lot of people with MS, but when we do, when they're in the hospital, they're there for a reason, and it's really hard, and they're in a lot of trouble. They're really struggling. So I saw the worst cases. So I was just like, how is this my life? This cannot be my life. This has to be like, this is not me. So I really resisted it for a long time. And I remember when I finally went to the MS clinic, my neurologist went, and she's still my neurologist to this day. She went and she's like, okay, you have MS. She was telling me this whole thing. And then, it was about half an hour, or I don't even know how long. And she says, do you have any questions? And I said, yeah. Do I have MS? And she's like, yeah, you do. But you know what? Your life's not over. Your life is just beginning. You're going to have a wonderful life. And I know that it's scary. And I know that it's hard to not know what your future looks like. But we all don't know what our future looks like. She says, I could literally go and walk across the street and get hit by a bus tomorrow. So you're going to be okay, and you're going to have an amazing life. And it's going to be okay.
Mm-hmm. I'm so glad you brought up grief, because I think that is exactly what happens to people in these circumstances. And I'm sure you see this as a palliative care nurse. I don't think we do grief especially well
My goodness,
as a
yes.
society. So if you could go back and talk to your 24-year-old self in that moment when you got that diagnosis and you were in denial, which I think is a perfectly reasonable reaction, what would you tell your 24-year-old self, or anyone who's maybe recently faced a life-altering diagnosis?
I think give yourself time and really look at yourself in the mirror and give yourself a lot of grace to feel however you want to feel. It's really a life-altering diagnosis, and you're gonna go through those phases of like, no, this is not me, and you're gonna have resistance, and you're gonna have that, and to really just embrace it and really just be your own best friend. I think grief and grace go hand in hand, but it's very hard to have grief and grace. And usually, especially in a society that doesn't, recognize grief, doesn't recognize that, when you get diagnosed with a chronic illness, especially, any chronic illness, but one that's invisible to everyone, it's a special type of grief because people don't see it. And grief in a whole. No one sees grief. And even if you don't have a chronic or life-limiting illness, we're all going through life and we're all going through different stages where we are going to experience grief in many, many different ways. And I think having that awareness of, I'm grieving my past self, but that doesn't mean that my past self is completely gone. It's just a different version. And to really allow yourself to feel all the feelings.
Mm-hmm.
And I would just really sit with myself, because I don't even think I really gave myself time. I gave myself, the busyness of like, okay, all right, I got diagnosed with MS. I'm going to be an MS advocate now. Now I'm going to do, all the things MS. I'm going to be doing all of that. And I had so many beautiful people around me, especially like all my nursing friends. We did so much stuff together, and it's just give yourself grace. That's the only thing that I would say, that I would literally go and hug myself. I would hug myself and I would say, it's going to be okay. We're going to get through this. It's hard and it's going to be a roller coaster, but you're going to get through it and you're going to be stronger because of it.
Yeah.
And it's not because I hate when people go and say, oh my gosh, you're so strong. You don't have any choice to be. You don't have any choice to be.
Yeah.
But you can be strong, but with grace. Give yourself grace through that. And to have that vulnerability of saying, you know what, I'm hurting right now. I'm grieving right now. I'm giving myself space. I'm giving myself some boundaries that, hey, I can't talk right now. I can't deal with things right now. I need to take care of myself. I need to do lots of self-care because I have this diagnosis that's going to last my whole lifetime. And it's not, a sprint, it's a marathon.
Yeah. And I think what you said is really important, that I just want to reemphasize, that I think our tendency for so many of us is to jump straight into doing mode and action and like bypass the feeling part.
1000%.
Doesn't really work. Temporarily it works,
yeah.
but those feelings will come and find you.
Yes.
And I think not only is it like grief is hard when you're the griever, but I also think that we don't know how to be in relationship with people who are grieving. So based on your experience and also based on your work, like any words of advice for people who are friends or family or coworkers of people who are in a grieving process, like how do we be with these people? Because from what I've heard and experienced, people get so awkward. They say very weird things.
Oh my gosh.
That are not helpful. Yeah.
You could literally say, like, you can have like, when what was that show? It was like kids say the darnest things.
Yes.
Oh yes. We can have like a whole episode on grief. Like people say the darnest things in grief and you're like, what? I think actually supporting someone through grief is actually being comfortable with silence. There is nothing that you can ever say to a grieving person that will take away the heartbreak that they're experiencing. But allowing yourself and letting them know that you're there to sit with them in the silence, that you're there to sit with them when they're feeling that heartbreak, that whatever that they need, that you'll be there. And there's people that grief is unique and everyone grieves very, very differently. And to not have expectations on yourself. I think, we go and when someone's grieving, you're like, okay, I need to have like the best things to say. Now we got ChatGPT. So, people I'm sure are going and, having some nice things to say now. Yeah. But before ChatGPT, definitely probably it was a little odd, but to get out of your head and just be as a person, like just a human being, just a human being. That's it.
Yeah.
It's a very, very simple thing, but it's very uncomfortable. Silence is very uncomfortable, but it's very powerful. It's a very powerful thing that if you can sit with someone and just have your energy there and say, I'm here.
Mm-hmm. That's such good advice. One of the things you talked about when you were talking about your story is how you kind of like ignored or downplayed your symptoms a little bit in the beginning. And we know that a lot of women do this. So it's been shown that 8 in 10 women will delay care until their symptoms are so bad that they interfere with their day-to-day life.
Yeah.
And when we look at fatigue, women will wait up to 7 months before they seek care. And I always like use the example, would you ever let your child or your dog suffer for 7 months without calling the doctor or the vet? You would never.
So
right?
true.
But
so
yet
true.
we're willing to like, oh, it's probably just my B12 or I need to drink more water. Or, it's I must be doing something wrong.
Yeah.
So how would you maybe navigate that differently? Or what advice would you have for women who are noticing symptoms and kind of when to seek care if they're noticing symptoms that are unusual for them?
Yeah. So one thing that I would do is what I usually go and I speak to my patients, and I try to do it myself, but I'm really, nurses are the worst patients, actually. Just want to let you know.
Good to know.
Just want to let you know. But what I usually do is I go and I say, on a regular day, what does a good day look like for you? And like on, so if you're going to the gym, if you're eating healthy, if you're doing all the things that you usually do on a good day and you're still having fatigue, 1000% go and get it checked out, because fatigue, it's a huge symptom that people kind of dismiss, but it's a huge symptom in a lot of patients with chronic illnesses, chronic and life-limiting illnesses. So I would definitely say, if you're doing all the things that you usually do and you're still having fatigue, please go. If you're going and you're not eating, so this is how what happens to me is I'm not doing all the things that fuel my body. If you're going and you're not eating healthy and you're not fueling your body with like good nutrition, your sleep, you're not getting enough sleep, you're not, moving around, and you're like, oh, I'm having fatigue. First thing to do is, write a prescription to yourself. What does your body need? Just at the basics level. Fuel your body. Movement, mindfulness exercise. Have that. If you're doing everything and you can't, then go see it. If you're going and you're like, okay, well, actually, I could maybe do a little bit more to help myself, trial that, do the thing. So what I call these things they're called floaties in my life.
Okay. Tell me more.
Well, I will tell you it's kind of in the works, but I will tell you a little bit about it. I'm going to be doing like a little bit of research in this. So, floaties is basically anything that keeps you afloat during, these times of weathered season. So if you're having a new diagnosis or if you're not really feeling well, what are the things that keep you afloat? So nutrition, movement, mindfulness, any sort of, faith, anything that keeps you afloat. If you're still like navigating that, then you need extra support. You need a different set of eyes. Sometimes we go and we can be very like laser focused on like one thing, and we're not seeing, we're seeing there's different blind spots. And if we're able to get that extra support and extra eyes to be like, okay, well, you're looking fully left, but there's a lot of things to the right here that maybe could help you a little bit more, then definitely have that support in place. So I think having those the extra people there just to be able to give you a little bit of a different perspective on how you can better manage your fatigue.
Yeah. And a lot of times, in my experience, it's relatively simple things that can be fixed, right?
It is.
So we need to look at our basics, our vitamin levels, our iron. We need to, yes, those basic things should be looked at. Because sometimes it is a relatively simple fix. And then if it's not, and there's no explanation, then that is where we might want to look at something that is, less frequent, but that happens, like MS or other autoimmune illnesses, which women are much more at risk for, and that we still don't always do a great job of diagnosing quickly when women come in, with symptoms.
Exactly. There's always oh, you're a mother, you're this, you have
you're
all
stressed.
those, you're stressed, you're this, and you're like, okay, but this is different. This is a different type of fatigue. And I think a lot of people with chronic illnesses and life-limiting illnesses have a hard time trying to communicate that with their loved ones and also with their healthcare providers, and saying, you know what, this is a huge, huge difference. My quality of life is completely affected by it. I just went through treatment for the past 2 years, and I've been blessed since 2014. I haven't been able, my fatigue has been pretty manageable, but these past 2 years, I'm like, whoa, who am I? I am a completely different person. But the number one thing that I would tell my loved ones and even my patients, how can we communicate effectively to your loved ones and to your healthcare providers that this symptom, fatigue, is completely destroying your life?
Mm-hmm.
And how can we do that? So I don't know if you've ever heard of the spoon theory before.
I haven't.
You haven't?
No.
Oh, well, I'll speak to you about the spoon theory.
Enlighten us.
Okay. So the spoon theory was based on someone's personal experience. So I think her name's Christine, what was it? Christine Mezzarandino. She was a patient, or she is a patient with lupus. And she was sitting at the dinner table with one of her friends, and her friend was like, so what's it like, having a chronic illness? And she was trying to depict and trying to explain fatigue and just feeling depleted. So she actually picked up a spoon. Good thing we're not on video.
A metaphorical spoon.
Metaphorical spoon right here. And she was like, every day we wake up with a limited amount of spoons. And people with chronic illnesses, so she was talking about herself with lupus, that they have a limited amount of spoons. So if someone with, that doesn't have a chronic illness may, wake up with 50 spoons in a day. Well, gosh, you can do a lot with that. But someone with lupus or any sort of chronic illness, or even actually grief, we can really talk about grief here. Grief takes your energy. You can wake up with 5 spoons, 2 spoons. So what are you going to do with that? You're not going to go and say, okay, I'm going to take a shower, I'm going to go to the gym, I'm going to do errands, I'm going to, just do absolutely all the things. There's only a limited amount of spoons. So what are we going to do with that? And to have that clear communication with your loved ones, that they're able to kind of see, okay, oh, you only have 2 spoons left. Okay, so what are we going to do? What are we going to do with that? So the spoon theory actually ended up blowing up in the chronic illness community. Mm-hmm. And actually, if you see here, I'm too, whatever, my husband was because we were advocates for MS and all chronic illnesses. I was like, I'm a spoonie now, babe. I'm a spoonie. And he went and he got me this shirt, and it's a low spoon warning. So just to have just a little bit of people don't really understand, hey, I'm tired.
Mm-hmm.
You're like, okay, yeah, me too. Like I didn't really have a good sleep last night. And be like, no, like I only have one spoon left. Like that's all I have today. Like that's it.
Yeah.
To have that kind of communication with your loved ones can really, really help with that.
Yeah.
So I
love
speak
that.
with that with my patients. And I was speaking with one of our palliative care doctors, and I was speaking to her about the spoon theory. She's like, oh, I speak to them about spoon theory, but it's in a different way. And I speak about pearls. And I was like, oh, I kind of like pearls. Pearls are kind of cute. Like I like pearls. And I was like, oh, so why the pearls? She's like, I don't know. It's just pearls. And it was one of her friends. Her name was Laura. She talked about it. It was kind of the spoon theory, but in pearls. I was like, okay, well, maybe we can do like an acronym for it. Kind of sounds really nice. So we created that and we're giving it to our patients now. And so the acronym, I'll tell you what the acronym is. So P starts with prioritize. So focus on truly matters each day. Conserve your energy by choosing the most essential tasks. Then there's energize wisely. Adjust expectations. So expectations is a huge, huge thing. And it can really, the expectations of, sometimes where you are on your disease trajectory might look different than, a week ago or yesterday. So to have those not expectations, but intentions, switch it from, expectations is more of a goal based of like, okay, I need to get this done, this done, this done. But if you go and you say you adjust expectations to intentions are much more loved base of like, okay, what do I intend to do today? Do I intend to just give myself grace? Can definitely help with that too. Rest intentionally. So pacing yourself, someone with chronic illness, with fatigue, you may need to take, those breaks every hour, every 15 minutes, just to give yourself a little bit of a boost so you can be able to really spend that day, be able to spend the most of your pearls or your spoons that day. And then the last one is listen to your body and really give yourself grace during that. There's sometimes, and I am very, very bad with that, is I try to go like, oh, no, I can do it just a little bit longer. And then you end up next day being
overdoing
like,
it. Yeah.
I'm the classic overdoer.
You're in good company.
Yes.
I love that acronym. Are you tired of being told everything is normal, even though you're exhausted and don't feel like yourself? You deserve better care than that. In my one-on-one practice, I help women just like you do a deep dive to figure out what's really draining your energy. Together, we'll get answers and create a clear, personalized plan to help you start feeling like yourself again. If you live in Ontario or the Outaouais region and you're ready for the next step, visit drsarahv.ca to learn more and book your appointment today. Because being tired all the time isn't normal, and you don't have to keep pushing through it. I actually want to play you a voicemail from one of our listeners that I think really touches on this idea of adjusting expectations. Mm-hmm. Because we have such high expectations for
really
ourselves. And I think going back to the grief, like when you are no longer able to perform at the level that you used to, and I see this a lot with people going through perimenopause, it's devastating and it's really hard to navigate. So let's listen to our voicemail from Nikki about how to manage the overwhelm of daily fatigue and how to navigate expectations for ourselves when we really struggle with fatigue.
Oh my goodness. One last voice message. Nikki again. I also would love, and I mean, you touch on the connection between mental health and physical health like all the time, but just driving home the idea that when we are exhausted, how does that affect our emotions? I just find that I am such a easily overwhelmed human being some days. And, I've seen a therapist about it. And recently it was kind of brought to my attention that this may be very well linked to my diagnoses and the fact that maybe like some of my expectations for myself based on my past self are unrealistic. And maybe that's true. But also just like if I'm struggling to have the sort of stability and trust in my own energy to meet my own needs, I feel like that really affects just my emotional state and well being. That maybe is just too much, but yeah, I wanted to share that as well.
It's never too much. Pam, what would you respond to Nikki?
It really is when you have that overwhelming exhaustion. It's hard to think clearly. It's really hard to think of, okay, this shall pass, this is going, it will be okay. You're not thinking that when you're exhausted, you're exhausted. And it with the floaties that I talk about, when you're having those hard days where you're like, you know what, I can't do what I used to do right now. And that's hard. And it's really hard. And to really sit with that and say, what would I tell my loved one right now? What would I tell my loved one? If I'm able to really look in that mirror right here, right here, it's really dirty. But to really look at myself and say, what do I need to tell myself right now? That I don't need to do more, that I am enough and I am loved right now, just as who I am. And I don't need to do more, but I need to sit with myself and really give myself the love and the credit that what I'm doing is enough. And, if you're going and saying, I only have 20% to give, that's a whole 100% of your 20%. So you are doing a good job. But it doesn't take away from the fact that that grief of, temporarily or permanently losing who you once were, it's hard. It's hard. And there's nothing that I could ever say to take that away, but to really sit with you in that moment and say, you know what? It sucks. Having that chronic illness, having fatigue sucks. It sucks. But there are ways that we can make the best of what we have in that moment. And that's where, we have those pivots in, okay, I can't do what I once used to do. And there's always those little pivots in our lifetime where we're like, okay, well, I can't do this right now. I had a patient yesterday and she was talking about how she really wants to do aquatics, but she can't right now. I said, what's the best next thing from aquatics? What can we look at? We're looking at a narrow view, but it's always great to really go and say, okay, I'm looking this way right now, but there's a world around me that's happening right now. And we're in this present moment. And when there is, and when I, or when any of my patients are in that moment of, I used to be able to do that in the past, and I'm sad about that. And it's okay. It's okay to be sad. It's okay to grieve your old self. Or if they're worried about what's the future going to hold? Is this treatment going to work? Is my MS going to progress? What am I going to do for that? And you can go through all the future. If they're in the past or if they're in the present, say, where are you right now? Where are you? What's around you? Let's take a nice deep breath, because there's always something to be grateful for. So many blessings in the present moment. It's not called the present moment for anything. The present moment is a gift. And through all of, when you're going through like endless fatigue, there's always all these lessons that can be learned. And if you have that perspective of there's always a lesson to be learned here, even through the fatigue. What can I see? Because if you're looking for everything that's bad, you're going to see more bad.
Absolutely.
If you're just looking, and it doesn't mean that, you can only see positive, but to be able to really broaden your whole emotions of acknowledging where you are and where your feelings are right now, but not attaching to yourself to that identity of, okay, this is where I am right now. It doesn't mean that you're going to be there all the time.
And it's not who you are. It's
Exactly.
what you are experiencing. And all I keep thinking as you're talking about is, if I only have 2 spoons and I'm spending those spoons regretting the past and wishing things could have been different, or I'm fearing the future and being anxious about what's happening, I'm spending my 2 small little precious spoons like missing my day.
Exactly. That's exactly how it is. So I feel like just a huge awareness brings everything into perspective. And I feel like even going and looking at yourself in the mirror, if you're quickly looking at yourself in the mirror, are you truly looking at yourself? Are you truly accepting where you are right now, what your feelings are right now, what you're feeling, what your present reality looks like? Are you giving yourself grace? Because if you're sitting in the mirror and you're able to go and be like, okay, I need to go, I need to get makeup, I need to do all this, I need to busy myself a little bit more, you're hiding. You're running away from what you're truly feeling.
Yeah. We're so good at doing that too. We're so good at busying ourselves.
We are so good at it.
Well, it's a very socially acceptable and actually rewarded way to ignore the discomfort, because most of us have not sat in grief and sadness, and we don't know how to do it. It doesn't feel good, and therefore we'll look for any out, like any way to get out of feeling the bad feelings.
Yes.
And busyness is like a real good way for a lot of us to do that.
It really is. And society is, almost kind of allows you to do that, encourages you to do that, because they're uncomfortable with someone that is grieving, that they're like, okay, we're really hoping for the story to end, to shift, there's going to be some sort of fairy tale at the end of this thing. She's going to come out of this. No, grief never goes away. Even with a chronic illness, it doesn't go away. It changes over time, but it never goes away. So to be able to go and say, I have MS, but MS doesn't have me. And we have to recognize that, in detaching yourself from it. I was speaking with one of the palliative care doctors, and he was speaking about how patients that have cancer, they have kind of 2 identities, and how, when they come into the hospital, they put on their cancer cap and I am a cancer patient in the hospital. But outside of the hospital, I don't want to be a cancer patient, and I'm going to live my life. So to have those kind of things of giving yourself kind of boundaries of, okay, yes, I have this, but it does not have me. It's a separate identity from me, allows you to live life to the fullest with whatever you have.
Yeah. I feel like I could talk to you for a million years, so we'll have to have you back. You shared so much wisdom. The things that I'm really taking away from our conversation today is like the importance and the beauty of silence. I know it's something that I definitely struggle with in certain contexts, that I have a hard time just being silent and not making that mean all kinds of things that it doesn't really mean. And just this idea of being aware of how many spoons you have, whether you have a chronic illness or not. We all have days where we have fewer spoons, and it's such a great way to articulate that to your boss, your partner, your kids, whoever you're in community with, to give them like a tangible understanding. Like, I only have 2 spoons today. What? Exactly. Number one, who's getting those 2 spoons? Who and what? Yeah. And maybe what do I need to help facilitate the rest that I don't actually have enough spoons for today? Yeah. Pam, thank you for sharing your story so openly. And thank you for talking about grief. I really do think it is something that we all would benefit from learning how to navigate ourselves, but also how to be in relationship with others who are grieving. I think we all benefit from that conversation. Yes. Thank you for listening, everyone. We will see you back here in 2 weeks. I know your time is precious, so it means so much to me that you're here. If you enjoyed this episode, share it with a woman in your life who could use a little extra energy and encouragement today. It's a small way to show her you care, because we're all in this together. Wondering what the next step is? Find out what's really draining your energy by taking my fatigue fingerprint quiz at fatiguefixer.ca/quiz. You'll discover which of the 5 most common types of fatigue you're dealing with, like frazzled fatigue, where your body's exhausted but your mind won't turn off, or drained fatigue, where no amount of sleep ever feels like enough. Your results will include recommended labs to ask your doctor about, plus my top suggestions for habits and practices that can help you start feeling more rested, calm, and in control. Because here's the thing, being tired all the time isn't normal, and you deserve to feel like yourself again. And hey, if you've got a story to share, a question, or just something on your mind, leave me a voicemail. Your voice might even make it into a future episode. Thanks again for listening, and remember, it's not all in your head. I believe you, and we'll figure this out together. I'll see you right back here in 2 weeks.
This is SSN
Story Studio Network.